The anime begins with a boy named Kazuhaya Kamito, who sees a woman bathing in a lake in the forest. The girl's name was Claire, and she became angry when she discovered that Kamito had seen her. Claire then attacked Kamito with her elemental weapon. In her attack, Claire accidentally cuts a large tree in the forest. Kamito immediately saved her from the falling tree. But Kamito's rescue didn't stop Claire from attacking him. She continued her attack on Kamito until he fell unconscious. When he woke up, Kamito realized that Claire was a student of Araishia Academy. He then informed that he was sent by Greyworth to deliver a letter to Araishia Academy. On the way to the academy, they stop briefly at the Sacred Offering Temple. Claire intends to enter into a contract with a weapon that has a spirit in it. Kamito said that what she was doing was very dangerous. The spirit will probably kill its master if something goes wrong. Not long after, the dreaded thing happened. As Claire picked up the sword, it got out of control and turned to attack them. They had to do something to tame it. Finally, Kamito entered into a contract agreement with the sword. Claire wondered how he could do it, even do better than herself. However, because Claire's target weapon had already made a pact with Kamito, she asked him to become a contracted spirit and serve her. Arriving at the academy, Kamito secretly escaped from Claire's bonds because he was unwilling to serve Claire. He then went to the room of Greyworth, the academy's principal. Greyworth asked Kamito to become a student of the academy. Shortly after Greyworth's offer, a girl named Ellis entered the principal's office. She must take Kamito around and introduce him to the school environment. Ellis explains that the academy accepts noble daughters and trains them to become skilled spirit users. After being introduced to the school environment, Ellis took Kamito to his dormitory. Kamito lived in a house made of wood. This was because Araishia Academy was an all-girls academy and therefore, the dormitory lacked facilities for boys. Besides, Kamito also didn't have enough money to be able to buy food in the dormitory. The next day, Claire met up with Kamito in the classroom. She forced Kamito to agree to become a contracted spirit and serve her. Even though Kamito disagreed, Claire still kept Kamito as her contracted spirit. However, a girl named Rinslet also wanted Kamito to be her servant. Kamito became a bone of contention between the two of them. Not long after, there was Carol, who was also trying to have Kamito as her servant, and at that time, Kamito became a bone of contention for the three girls. That night, Kamito contemplated his fate of having to attend the academy. Suddenly someone knocked on the door of his room, and that person was Rinslet bringing him food as a bribe so that he would be willing to be her servant. Kamito rejected Rinslet's bribe. Rinslet insisted on giving her food to Kamito. She then left Kamito's room. While going out, Kamito asked Rinslet to be his friend. And apparently, his invitation was seen by Claire. Rinslet immediately took out Fenrir, which was her weapon. Claire also didn't want to lose by taking out her fire spirit. Suddenly, Ellis came, and one of her friends said that Rinslet was a nobleman, and Claire was the sister of a traitor. Hearing that, Claire and Rinslet challenged Ellis and her friends to a fight. Their fight was 3 against 3. Before the match, Claire invited Kamito to her dorm room. Kamito and Claire then had dinner together. The match started. Ellis made an elemental wind attack which Kamito countered with his blade of destruction. Meanwhile, others helped by providing support from a distance. The battle was fierce. Suddenly between the matches, a demon spirit interfered with the course of the match. The demon spirit suddenly launched an attack on them, forcing them to stop the ongoing match. The arrival of the demon spirit was viewed differently by Claire. Claire apparently intended to make a contract with the demon spirit. However, she was instead hit by a counterattack from the demon spirit so that she could be easily defeated by the demon spirit. Seeing this, Kamito tried to help and protect Claire by deploying his spirit, and it turned out that he was very experienced in defeating the demon spirit. The demon spirit was defeated by Kamito. His friends who saw this were shocked because they thought Kamito was a weak child. Claire seemed very disappointed at her failure to make a contract with the demon spirit, and she started to cry. Meanwhile, Kamito tried to calm her down, but the fight that had just happened drained him of all his strength and made him faint. When he faints, memories of his past appear. Apparently, when he was little, Kamito had been trained by someone to become an assassin. The next day, Kamito was in a girl's dormitory. He was surprised to see a woman in front of him. The woman was called Est. When he asked why Est was there, she simply said that she belonged to Kamito. Est then addressed Kamito as master, but she didn't explain it in detail. Suddenly, Rinslet appeared from behind the door. Kamito immediately asked Est to hide under his blanket to avoid any misunderstandings. Rinslet came with her maid and said that she was the one who took care of him when he passed out, as a thank you for helping Claire. Although Rinslet and Claire often fight, they seem to care about each other because Claire is her childhood friend. Rinslet apparently noticed that there was something odd about Kamito's blanket, and she opened his blanket. They were also surprised to see Est, who was there without wearing a piece of cloth on her body. Rinslet was angry and about to attack Est with Fenrir, her weapon. Yet Estate easily tamed Fenrir. She explained that she was the holy sword spirit demon slayer who had contracted with Kamito. Kamito finally brought Est to the academy. This caught the attention of many people, for thought Kamito was a pervert because he was walking with a young girl. The one who reacted to Kamito and Est's presence was Ellis. Ellis seemed to be threatening Kamito with a sword. But Kamito managed to explain about Est, and Ellis accepted Kamito's explanation. At the same time, it was rumored that a blade dance match would soon be held and that the prize would be a military weapon spirit as the grand prize. Claire decided to be a participant in the match. She entered the match without a contracted spirit. Therefore this match would be even more difficult. Kamito caught up with Claire in the middle of the match, but he arrived too late. There it turned out to be chaos because Claire activated the dark spirit. Previously, Claire had received something from someone. Apparently it was the energy to activate the dark spirit. Kamito came over to Claire, who was with the dark spirit. He said he was willing to become a contracted spirit for her, who needed him. Kamito's words touched Claire. Yet the dark spirit she summoned was still rampaging and attacking its own master. That dark spirit was called Scarlet, and she would only lose her powers for a short time. Therefore, Claire and Kamito tried to defeat the spirit. But it turns out the problem is not over because suddenly, a very large mad spirit arrives and prepares to attack them. They must work together again to defeat the spirit of madness. In the end, the madness spirit was defeated, but Kamito fainted because he was running out of energy. Previously, Kamito was able to defeat a greater demon spirit. He easily ran out of energy because he had long since stopped fighting. It turned out that in his past, he was better known as Renash Spell, where he often fought in women's clothes, while outside of matches, he dressed appropriately. The next day, Kamito, Claire, Rinslet, and Ellis had lunch together. Rinslet offered Claire to be a part of her team, while Claire also offered the same. Ellis also offered Kamito to join her team, but Claire stopped her. In the end, Kamito agreed to stay on Claire's team. They then discuss a new student named Fianna, and Claire wants to invite her to be a part of her team as well. Next, Greyworth summoned Kamito to introduce him to the new girl named Fianna. Apparently, Fianna was a girl Kamito often helped when she was little, but Kamito didn't seem to recognize her. Fianna is the second princess of the kingdom. Therefore she is included as a noble who is important for the school to appoint someone to be her guard. Greyworth wanted Kamito to be Fianna's bodyguard. In addition, she also offered a dangerous mission for Kamito, but the rewards were quite high, and he had a good chance of upgrading his squad. Kamito walked with Fianna, and she tried to get Kamito to remember her. The next day, Kamito asked why Fianna knew about his past as Renash Spell. There Fianna declared that she was someone Kamito had once helped, but Kamito then explained that he still didn't remember Fianna. Fianna understood and accepted that Kamito might think of her as someone he knew at a glance. Meanwhile, to complete the mission given by Greyworth, Kamito took Claire, Rinslet, Ellis and also Fianna. They were currently in an old mining site that looked abandoned for a long time. The place looks like a dead city. Meanwhile, Ellis, who was already there before they came, was apparently fighting Gio Inzaghi. Their fight made a loud noise, and they easily fought Gio. Gio received an attack, and before he was defeated, he chose to flee from that place. However, it turns out that Kamito was exhausted and almost fainted in defeating Gio. Suddenly there was a big shock, and they rushed to the place of the Spirit Stone. Soon they arrived. They then immediately refined the Spirit Stone, and Kamito was in charge of guarding the door. But suddenly, Gio came again. Kamito was able to defeat Gio even though he ended up using a lot of his strength. Meanwhile, Fianna is in charge of performing the spirit dance, and when she succeeds in doing it, Gio becomes unable to control his body. But suddenly, a dark spirit named Reztia came, and she became Gio's Sword of Darkness. Gio immediately attacked Fianna but was blocked by Kamito. Fianna finally used her Holy Knight Spirit, blocking Gio's attacks with ease. Kamito and Claire took this opportunity to deal with critical damage to Gio. Gio was able to be conquered thanks to their attacks, and they managed to complete the mission. Meanwhile, the blade dance match drew near, and at the moment, Kamito, Claire, and Fianna still didn't have a complete set of members. However, they trained to improve their competitive ability. Kamito could now freely control his swordsmanship, Claire could recognize the enemy's weaknesses better, and Fianna trained with her knight's spirit to make their group's defense even better. A few days later, Kamito invited Ellis to study together in the library. Suddenly, Ellis took him to the dormitory. Kamito was a little nervous and confused. Arriving there, apparently, Ellis prepared a meal for Kamito, and she also became a servant for him. This was done as a thank you to Kamito for helping her. During the meeting, Ellis told about her older sister named Velsaria who had lost during the blade dance. She then asked Kamito to join her army of knights at the academy. Kamito accepted Ellis' offer, but apparently, he was asking for a reward for her offer. However, it is clear that this will create a new polemic with Claire. Claire, knowing this, was angry with Kamito because she felt Kamito had betrayed her. The following day, Ellis introduced Kamito to one of the Academy's knight squad in front of the rest of her army. At first, everything went smoothly and under control until Velsaria finally appeared among them. Velsaria turned out to be a knight leader, just like Ellis. However, Velsaria was dissatisfied with Ellis' performance because Ellis let the intruder escape the other day. Velsaria then wreaks havoc in the place, and begins to choose the people to be pawns in her squad. Some people decided to leave Ellis, and most of them still stuck with Ellis. Ellis then explained to Kamito about her background. From a young age, Velsaria desired to become a great knight, and she fought very hard to achieve that goal. This also made Ellis join the team led by Velsaria. But suddenly, everything changed when Velsaria only thought about her strength. The climax was when she was defeated by Renash Spell in the last blade dance. Ellis hates blade dance at first, but ends up admiring Renash Spell as well. Because Kamito was currently on Ellis's team, his relationship with Claire had become increasingly distant. Claire also looked disappointed at Kamito, who put Ellis ahead of her. Claire then left Kamito and Ellis together in the city. What Claire didn't know was, apparently, Kamito had asked Ellis in return for being able to accompany him to buy jewelry for Claire. They could only be silent, watching Claire leave. Not long after, there seemed to be a riot in the city's center. Ellis and Kamito rushed over there and found that a monster was making a mess. Then they worked together to be able to fight the monster. They were a little overwhelmed, but luckily Claire suddenly came to help them. Moments later, all of the monsters were simply defeated. It was because Velsaria destroyed the monster, but she didn't care that the attack she launched had a more severe impact than it should be because her attack damaged buildings and injured people. She seemed unconcerned about the situation. A few days later, Claire appears to come to Ellis and asks her to join her team. This was because Kamito, who was still badly injured, was still unable to compete. Ellis also agreed to this and agreed to become Claire's team in the selection of the blade dance match. The team leader seemed ready to fight on the day of the match. Their opponent this time was Velsaria. This match aims to determine which team will compete in the blade dance. Attack after attack was launched against each other. Until one point, Velsaria was in a position that was on the verge of losing. However, she immediately launches a curse seal attack which is extremely dangerous to the opponent. Suddenly, Kamito came to the match area and freed them from the cursed seal's attack. Thanks to Kamito's help, they managed to defeat Velsaria's team. The moral of this story is to always prioritize teamwork because it will make it easier to fight the common enemy and quell evil.